tomorrow. We got Christmas coming up. So, and if you don't want to make a donation to help pay for the bandwidth, I'm going to have to start sneaking in commercials now and then. I'm sorry. But you can cure that by going to www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. Click on the donation part. If you're one of the people that make a donation and we get enough donations, I won't have to run commercials on the internet side. Just you guys that listen on the radio stations will have to deal with the commercials.
You naughty boy, you.
Well, please remove a deer that invaded Oklahoma bedroom.
Oh, boy. What is it with the animals and the home invasion they've been up to lately? Are they running out of wood space, or are they just getting cranky, or is it the earth changes, the magnetic field driving them batty? What's going on?
I have no idea, but guess what? When they went in and broke into the bedroom where the deer was at, it was sleeping under the covers.
So let me paint this picture here. The couple didn't know the deer was in there, and they walked in and it's under the covers. That would be spooky. Or even if they heard something.
Well, they didn't know it was a deer. When they called the authorities, they thought somebody was in their bed. It turned out to be a deer.
Imagine that phone call. Yeah, somebody broke in and they're in my bed.
Yeah. I got a funny feeling everybody wasn't surprised for that one. And guess what? In California, wandering next to a California road, which happens to have a pond on the other side, a 5-foot alligator was spotted.
I don't know where that comes. Probably somebody had it as a pet and got tired of it, got too big, didn't want to feed it no more, and let it go. But Southern California could sustain alligators. They got a warm tropical kind of climate there. So, boy, oh boy, can you imagine if a bunch of alligators took over in Southern California? That'd be bizarre.
Yeah, or piranhas. I mean, do you imagine? A lot of, lakes are very popular in California, like Lake Shasta and all that. I mean, it's scary if something started, we get alligators all of a sudden. I mean, maybe somebody, let it grow to 5 feet and realized, hey, at 5 feet, it could bite my hand off or more. And then they decided to get rid of it. But I don't know.
Yeah, alligators are no joke. I've lived in Florida before. I actually caught one on a fishing rod one time, about a 2-footer, 2.5-footer. And it was little, but yet still pretty stout and still had a lot of teeth. And it was like, it was solid. It didn't even move until its head broke the water. When its head broke the water, man, it went crazy and it just spoiled off my reel.
Yeah, well, like one of the guests we had on the show, bought property, had a canal where, everybody moored their boats and stuff, because they have the canals coming, from the ocean inland. And he would go swimming every morning. And one morning, you remember what Rob said, he was getting out and he noticed it had some critters in the canal. And that was the end of his swimming going into it.
Absolutely. I've been in that scenario because that's another thing. I was down there. I was waded up to my, I don't know, probably my waist fishing. And I'm looking, here comes this probably 8-9 foot long big gator. This was a big gator. It had girth to it. Like this one here could kill you. And he's swimming across about 15 feet out in front of me. And I'm like, oh my. And that was the same time this boat's going up and these women on there and they're trying to moon me, and I'm looking at them and the gator, and I don't know where to go or run or do what. I was in a predicament, I'll tell you. But I got out of the water. I decided to leave the water while I could see the gator and not get eaten.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you had the choice. You could look at being, somebody mooning you, or you could, look at where that thing was and which is going to be most important for the 99.9% of the people. They're going to get away. They don't want to, have a bite out of them. Hey, the mooning thing, oh, well.
Believe me, that was just the one gator I could see. Once I seen him, and the weird part was that was kind of brackish water. It was kind of like where the canal went out into the salt, so it was more salty than fresh. So this gator didn't bother him at all, and I was like, boy, oh boy, imagine what I can't see. So I got out of that water quick. Well,
I sure would. And I want to say hi to Karen out there. She's on one of the chats. And, well, also in the news, a man was out fishing in Michigan. And he was not fishing for fish. He was using a magnet to see what he could pull up. These people are into, metal detectors, magnets, and stuff like this. He pulled up a live grenade from World War I. It was a German grenade, and it was still live.
Yeah, that guy's lucky to be alive. That's how a lot of people, because especially down in South Florida and stuff, or even along the eastern coast, all the pirates and all the ships, Spanish ships and stuff with treasures on them. And a lot of that stuff with the hurricanes gets blown up into the canals and the swamps. So they go out there with these big ropes with big magnets, and it's called magnet fishing. They'll throw it out, and you're not going to get gold or nothing, but if you find parts of the ships, that gives you an idea. Get in there, you're finding pirate ships, so the odds are you're going to find something else. But yeah, that's a danger. Finding grenades, landmines, who knows? That's some dangerous stuff. Jeez.
Well, in Florida, back here about a year ago, the same thing. They were off a bridge with a magnet in this river, and they would, what they would pull up? They would pull up parts of like a Thompson machine gun. They were pulling up magazines, bazookas, all kinds of weird stuff. And it made the news. And I'm trying to figure out how that stuff was dumped into a river, unless, the military was really dumb. I hate to say it, in the 30s and 40s, how they used to get rid of a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, just look at the stuff Karen, look at the stuff she finds where they throw in that lake or pond or wherever she gets. They just throw it away, and I think she found a grenade one time. But yeah, I found a grenade once too, about 30 years ago, and this grenade was live. This was a live grenade, and I got to tell you, I handled that with care. Still had the pin in it too, but you never know what you're going to come across, and really got to be cautious for sure.
Well, I still, like I mentioned on the show here back a couple weeks ago, growing up as a kid, my grandmother had a I don't know what millimeter shell, but it was one that was bigger than a bullet. I'm talking. It was like, I'm trying to think, maybe a howitzer or something like that. And it was fully intact, and I thought it was, hey, it's been drained of its gunpowder. I was a little kid, and I used to play around with it, on the floor and toss it around and all that stuff. Well, when I got older, I kind of got curious, and you know what? It was a live shell.
Oh my God! The things we play with as kids, kids today you'd go to jail if you let them play with.
Yeah, and I had a firing pin on the back of the shell too, maybe a size of a penny, that big diameter. So it would have took out her whole house. I guarantee you that. It would have. I wouldn't be here today.
That sounds like one of them howitzer 50s or 70s or something you're playing with. maybe they wanted you to
I think it was probably a 70, if I remember right.
Yeah, did they leave you alone to play with it all by yourself?
No, they were in the house playing. I don't know. See, that's the problem. A lot of my mom's brothers were all in the military, and so they would bring back souvenirs. But you would think they would, empty it. I mean,
Oh my goodness!
This sucker was like about, I would say, 4.5 inches around in diameter.
Yeah,
so it wasn't a small one, and then the casing on it, if I remember right, was probably in the neighborhood of maybe 4 or 5 inches, and then you had the other part on it. So the projectile. So it was a pretty good sized thing, and I'm lucky I'm here because, like I said, I tossed that sucker around. I used to anything you could think about. I would play around with it because it was exciting. When you're a little kid, hey, this is a cool thing.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't give you a hammer and tell you to go hit the bullseye on the back of the thing.
Yeah, that would, like the Three Stooges, it would, boom, the whole house would have been gone. I had a friend in junior high school He used to collect, military stuff because at that time you could buy a mail order really cheap, German, Japanese, Czechoslovakian, you name it, Russian, and all that stuff. And somehow he bought God, I can't think for what size bullets, but he bought bullets over the, through the mail, which I thought was illegal. But this is going back, 50 some years ago. Anyway, he had a blank gun, and he put one of those bullets, and I somehow managed to put it into it. And then he pulled the trigger, and it went off.
Oh, my goodness. Did it blow the whole gun up?
Yeah, it blew the whole gun up, and after he got out of the hospital, I think he had 3 fingers on that hand.
He got out of the hospital. Yeah, I bet. Mike, he's lucky to be alive. Jeez.
I mean, I'm
telling you.
Yeah, that shrapnel from that, could have, blinded him and killed him. It could have done anything. He was lucky. He just lost a couple fingers.
Yeah. And, another thing that kind of reminds me of, I used to do a lot of demolition stuff. And one of the places, people had old shells, and we had a fire out there, burning the wood. And I'm looking, and I see a couple people with these boxes, and I'm like, isn't there shells in that? They're just going to throw it in the fire. And I got to tell you something. That is not a good idea either. Even if 22 shells, they start going off, they will hurt or kill you real quick.
Oh, yeah, 22. A lot of people don't realize that 22 bullet will travel a lot longer because of the caliber, the size of it, than, a 30-06.
Well, right. Plus, if you're putting in a fire, you're at close range. So,
oh yeah,
those things are going off every which way. And I've heard them go off in fire before. And boy, I tell you what, I've ducked for cover real quick. Oh,
well, on a plane flight, there was a guy who was complaining he was having a lot of pain, and he was moaning and screaming, and there happened to be a doctor on board, and the doctor checked the guy out and said, well, your bladder hasn't drained. And it was to the point, if he didn't drain the bladder, he would have died. That's how bad it was. So the doctor made a makeshift device to drain the guy's bladder.
Oh, my goodness. So he must have had a blockage where he couldn't go or something.
Yeah, he must not have been able to go for a long period of time, because, he was in a matter of, maybe an hour or so from dying from it. So the doctor took all these straws together.
Okay.
And somehow inserted it. And you remember how they used to siphon gas?
No, tell me. Tell me, Gary.
You put your mouth and lips on the end of the hose and you suck. And then when the gas starts coming out, you got your flow to fill the gas can. Well, that's how they drain the guy's bladder.
Okay, I got the picture now.
You're not supposed to be laughing,
God.
You know that.
I know, but that is hilarious. I could just see that whole scenario working. This guy is a MacGyver of doctors, and now he's got to watch you don't get a mouthful of something.
Yeah, it's right here. The doctor did a MacGyver, saving this guy's life. Made a medical device out of milk straws, a syringe needle, tubing, an oxygen mask, and suction.
That sounds like a skit off of a comedy show, I'll tell you. But I'm surprised there are not a bunch of people that filmed that with their phones and put that online somewhere.
I don't know. I'd be too gross.
Yeah, I bet. Can you imagine siphoning that? The poor guy's sitting there having somebody siphoning that stuff out of his bladder. What a weird predicament.
Yeah, but I guess it's better than dying. But, gee, the embarrassment of that. I don't know. And it was on a full, a plane coming, I guess, from Japan to the U.S., so who knows. Anyway, we're about almost ready for the news again. Not the news, but the break for the radio station news. You can check us out at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. Go on there. We have a player. You can click listen live. That'll take you to the player, so you don't have to scroll down to the bottom of the page. I updated it for the rest of the week with who our guest is, so you can check that out. And you can listen to all the past shows for free. Now, the catch is there is a donation button, and you can help us a lot if you make a donation of $1 or $2 to help pay for the bandwidth. You know, again, we're on 20-some radio stations, but you know what? They don't pay us anything to be on those stations. So,